It is really irritating to constantly sneeze and have an itchy nose. If you can't get rid of it and it keeps making you sneeze, it may be incredibly annoying and aggravating. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. However, when 38-year-old Robbie from New York discovered the cause of his itching, it completely shocked both him and the doctor. Although this amazing tale may appear too strange to be real, it is. Robbie had learned to sneeze on a daily basis. It all came down to the fact that his nose was extremely irritating. Not just a little itching, but a crazy, I wish I could just pull my nose off type of itchy, because he would always sneeze, no matter where he was. He had always blamed it on allergies or even hay fever, but being the obstinate guy that he was, he would not seek medical attention. Reflecting on his choice, Robbie remarked, "I was always asking myself, why should I go visit a doctor just because I was sneezing? What on earth will a doctor do? Blow your nose, guy, and hand you a bag of Kleenex. I simply didn't want to waste anyone's time on such a pointless matter." Furthermore, the fact is that Robbie actually disliked visiting the doctor. Since he was a little child, he had always experienced unreasonable anxiety and did his best to ignore any ailments. Fear truly is a weird emotion, and it may make you do irrational things. It would go away on its own eventually, right? He reasoned as he continued. Robbie believed it, but the sneezing and itching continued. In actuality, it worsened in addition to continuing. Robbie disregarded it more and more the worse it became until eventually it simply seemed normal to him. He had essentially accepted that he would have to put up with a persistent sneeze and an itchy nose. There are worse things in life to cope with after all. He had no idea what was causing the severe itching. The issue is that Robbie's issue began to impact operations at the eatery where he was employed. He prepared meals for the wealthy and well-known tourists in New York City while working in the kitchen of a renowned five-star restaurant. Naturally, maintaining the greatest standards of cleanliness is essential while handling food in order to prevent contaminating or damaging the meal you're making. Unfortunately, there was a very high chance that bacteria may get into the meal because of the itchy nose and frequent sneeze. Robbie attempted for a long time to conceal the fact that he was in a lot of pain, but sadly, it became increasingly clear that something was amiss. The proprietor of the eatery remarked, "We had no choice but to send him home." Since it was midweek and Robbie had not lost his job, things were somewhat calm. However, we couldn't have a person in the kitchen who would endanger patrons. Before he went back to work, we suggested that he schedule a visit with a doctor to have everything looked out. The incredibly anxious Robbie showed up to the clinic on the day of the doctor's visit. His thoughts were racing as he waited in the waiting area. What was the matter with him? What was causing his nose to itch so much? Why did he sneeze more than everybody else? When the doctor finally called him in, he sat tremblingly in front of him and explained everything. Fortunately, the doctor was a gentle old guy who made every effort to calm Robbie down. He recommended looking inside Robbie's nose to see if he could spot any problems. He started investigating the nasal passage's entrance using a specialized instrument. There were no obvious signs of irritation or anything like that, the doctor said, referring to the analysis. Usually, you'd expect to see some sort of foreign object in there that would act as an irritant and cause the itching the patient was experiencing. But as far as I could tell, everything looked normal. The severe sneezing and itching were ascribed by the doctor to either acute hay fever or a response to the unclean air in New York. He told Robbie to come back in a week if his condition didn't improve after prescribing him an extra strong antihistamine. The doctor was unaware of the stunning and amazing cause, which was beyond the reach of antihistamines. But Robbie's situation didn't get any better. Indeed, they began to worsen. He was continuously tired from the itching and sneezing, which kept him up at night and disrupted his day-to-day activities. Thus, a week later, he found himself in the doctor's office once more, feeling just as anxious as before. The doctor was baffled after examining Robbie's nose a second time, not because he had figured out the real reason, but because everything appeared remarkably normal. He even asked a coworker to check it out, but once more there was nothing wrong with it. Thus, the physicians made the decision to examine Robbie's nose more closely. Because the nasal canal is so little and the nose is too black, They were unable to do this visually. Thus, a CT scan was requested for him. Computed tomography, or CT scans, are sophisticated imaging methods that provide fine-grained pictures of the body's inside. This scan would uncover anything undesirable that could be within. You would be completely shocked by what they were going to discover down into Robbie's nasal canal, though. Robbie arrived at the hospital a few days later, prepared for the scan. The procedure started when he lay on the bed and was moved inside the big tubular CT scanner. The procedure, which required him to lie still, didn't cause him any pain. He could see the technician from where he lay, though, and it was the one thing that worried Robbie. The technician's expression became increasingly surprised as the scans began to show up on the screen, her eyes widening in horror. Robbie's stomach was in knots and his heart was racing. What did she witness that would have made her respond that way? The scan was completed quickly, and the clearly shaky technician sent him on his way after informing him that he would have his results in a few days. Robbie left, still sneezy and itchy as ever. He had no choice but to wait till he received the call informing him that his results were in. "I just had that image of the technician's face running around in my head," Robbie recalling the incident. Her anxious expression couldn't be a good omen, I kept thinking, and when you have time to ponder, your mind tends to wander. The waiting time is the worst, in fact. Fortunately, his doctor didn't call him until the following day, and an hour later, Robbie was seated across the desk from him. The doctor's expression was one of concern and confusion, but after reviewing the CT scan data one last time, he exhaled deeply and disclosed the bizarre findings. A tooth was sprouting deep inside Robbie's nose. As the tooth developed, it began to irritate the lining of the nose and tickle the tiny hairs within. This was the source of the severe itching and frequent sneezing, but sadly, it was too far within for medical professionals to see. Robbie and the doctors were completely taken aback by the news. The tooth was not only positioned incorrectly, but it was also growing upward toward the skull rather than out of the gums as it should have. Though incredibly uncommon, such occurrences are not entirely unheard of. Fortunately, surgeons discovered a solution. They could extract the tooth delicately and softly by performing surgery inside Robbie's nose. Although it was a very easy remedy, the outcome would change people's lives. Robbie was just eager to resume his regular life at this point. He simply wanted it to stop because the sneezing and itching had become too much. Without hesitation, he consented to the procedure, and the following day, all was finished. After cauterizing the hole and extracting the tooth and root, which totaled half an inch or 13 millimeters, the physicians were done. Robbie was corrected. "What a big deal about something so little. Fortunately, I've recovered," Robbie smiled a few weeks later. "The physicians informed me that they had never witnessed something so peculiar, and to be honest, neither had I. It resembled something from a horror novel by Stephen King. However, I've been able to get some much-needed sleep, resume my job, and stop the itching and sneezing. Furthermore, I have overcome my phobia of visiting the doctor." What are your thoughts on this tale then? How would you have handled the constant sneezing and such an irritated nose? And did you ever think that a misplaced tooth was the root of it all? Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.